Let me set the record straight. I'm not one of those conspiracy nut jobs or ghost story fanatics, okay? I'm just a regular guy who got in way over his head. But you asked, and since I'm a couple of beers deep, I might as well tell you. You're not gonna believe me, and that's fine. Hell, I wouldn't either if I hadn't seen it myself. This all went down a few years back when I was up in Alaska. Gorgeous place, but man, there's something about the wild up there. It doesn't just feel big. It feels alive, like it's watching you. I was working as a guide down on the Kenai, mostly taking tourists out fishing or showing them the ropes on a kayak. Easy money if you don't mind wet socks and skeeters the size of house cats. Now the locals up there, they've got stories for days. Some of them make Bigfoot sound like a Disney character. There's this one thing they call the Kushtaka. It's like half man, half otter, and it's supposed to lure you out with voices you recognize. Family, friends, whatever, and then drag you into the water. Supposedly you're never seen again. I laughed it off. Otters? Cute little dudes. What's scary about that? Turns out, a lot. Ever been to Alaska? It's like stepping into another world. Towering spruce trees, rivers so clear you can see the rocks on the bottom, and mountains that make you feel like an ant. Beautiful, sure, but it's a lonely kind of beautiful. There's no hum of cars, no distant city lights, just the wind through the trees, and the occasional splash of a salmon breaking the surface. Now, I'd been guiding out there for a while, and I thought I knew the place pretty well. I wasn't some city slicker getting freaked out by every rustle in the bushes. But sometimes, when you're out there alone, it hits you just how small you are. The woods don't need you, man. They don't care about you. And when they get quiet, like dead quiet, you start wondering if maybe they're trying to tell you something. So, it's late September, and I'm camping solo by the river. This was my downtime. No tourists, just me, my gear, and a little campfire. The light was fading, that golden hour where everything feels a bit surreal. I was just about to crawl into my tent when I heard it. "Help me." A woman's voice, faint but clear, cutting through the stillness. My first thought was, what the hell is someone doing out here at this hour? But the voice came again, closer now, and I swear it made my stomach twist. There was something off about it, like it was trying too hard to sound human. "Hello?" I shouted back, my voice cracking like I was a kid again. No answer. Just the sound of branches snapping somewhere in the trees. Against every survival instinct I had, I grabbed my flashlight and started walking toward it. Stupid, I know, but what if someone really needed help? You can't just ignore that. The trail was barely a trail, more like a suggestion. My flashlight wasn't helping much, just bouncing shadows around the trees. But I kept following the sound, even though it felt like it was moving away, always just out of reach. Then I saw the footprints. They were fresh, but weird. Barefoot, webbed toes, and way too big for a human. My stomach did this flip thing, like it was trying to crawl up into my throat. That's when the crying stopped. Dead silence, no wind, no crickets, nothing. I should have turned around right then, but I didn't. And then I heard it. a laugh. Not like a belly laugh, but this low, raspy chuckle. And it sounded just like my buddy Mike. Problem is, Mike was back in Anchorage. I froze, swinging my flashlight around like a maniac, and that's when I saw it. At first, it looked like a man, hunched and lanky, standing just at the edge of the light. But as I focused, I realized it wasn't a man at all. Its face was long and narrow, almost otter-like, with dark, glistening eyes that seemed to reflect the beam of my flashlight back at me. Its fur was slick and patchy, clinging to a body that seemed wrong. Its arms were too long, almost dragging on the ground, ending in clawed, webbed hands. The mouth stretched impossibly wide, full of sharp, jagged teeth that glistened as it grinned at me. Then it moved, not like anything I'd ever seen before. It didn't walk or run, it loped, its movements jerky and unnatural, as if it were fighting against the shape it was wearing. Its head twitched, turning sharply as if it was trying to decide whether I was worth the effort. My legs locked up. I wanted to run, but I couldn't even breathe. It was like the thing's gaze pinned me in place, stripping away every ounce of courage I thought I had. Then it spoke, and the voice was wrong in every way. "Stay with me," it said, the words dragging out like it was tasting them. The voice was the same one that had called for help, but now it was mocking, like it knew exactly what it had done to lure me here. My flashlight started to flicker, and the grin widened, those teeth looking sharper by the second. And then it lunged. I threw myself sideways, landing hard on my shoulder. My flashlight skittered into the bushes, but I didn't stop to grab it. The thing was on me, its claws swiping so close I felt the air move. I scrambled for anything, a rock, a branch, and found a chunk of driftwood. I swung it like a baseball bat, catching the thing across its side. It let out this screech like a dozen nails on a chalkboard and stumbled back. That's when I remembered what one of the locals had said about Kushtaka. They hate loud noises. So I screamed. I screamed like my life depended on it, because it did. And maybe it worked. Or maybe it just decided I wasn't worth the trouble. But the thing backed off. Its grin turned into this twisted snarl, and then it melted back into the shadows. I didn't stick around to see if it was coming back. I ran, tripping over roots and tearing through branches until I saw the riverbank. I collapsed onto the rocks, gasping for air, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold my head up. I didn't sleep that night, just sat there with my back to the water, clutching a piece of driftwood like it was a sword. As soon as the sun came up, I packed my gear and got the hell out of there. Told the locals what I saw and they just nodded like it was no big deal. "You're lucky," one of them said. "Most folks don't come back." I quit the job, left Alaska, and swore I'd never go back, but sometimes I still hear it. That laugh, just at the edge of the woods behind my house. And when I'm by the water, I see ripples where there shouldn't be any. So, yeah, you can call me crazy. Say I drank too much or imagined the whole thing. But if you're ever out in the Alaskan wild and you hear someone calling for help, do yourself a favor. Keep walking.